Did you know the very system keeping American farmers in business is collapsing right now? The BRICS trading system, a coalition of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is not just reshaping global trade, it's gutting the heart of American agriculture. U.S. farmers, who once fed the world, are now being squeezed out of global markets at a devastating rate. But here's the kicker, it's happening quietly. And by the time most people notice, it might be too late. To understand why U.S. farmers are losing out, you first need to understand how the BRICS countries are reshaping global trade. Traditionally, the U.S. dollar has dominated international markets, but that's changing fast. The BRICS countries, which represent over 40% of the global population and nearly 30% of global GDP, are moving away from the dollar and developing their own trading networks. For American farmers, the fallout is immediate. Take wheat, for example. U.S. wheat exports to China dropped by 32% in 2023, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Meanwhile, Brazil's wheat exports surged by 40%, largely thanks to BRICS agreements that streamline trade between member nations. The Financial Times recently reported that Russia is now China's primary wheat supplier, signaling a major shift away from American grain. The BRICS countries are building a system that bypasses the U.S. entirely, explains agricultural economist John Hayes from Harvard University. By creating their own price discovery mechanisms and trading blocks, they've effectively pulled the rug out from under U.S. farmers. And what's most alarming is that this shift isn't temporary. It's designed to last. The USDA reports that U.S. farm exports to BRICS countries have declined by 15% over the past 5 years. In contrast, intra-BRICS trade in agricultural products has skyrocketed, with Brazil alone exporting over $15 billion in grain to other BRICS members in 2022. U.S. farmers face historic decline as BRICS trade tightens grip, says the Wall Street Journal in a recent feature. The article highlights how the BRICS trading system, which sidesteps the U.S. dollar, is leading to the erosion of American dominance in agricultural exports. If you are enjoying our content, please hit the like button. To help us even more, please leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Your engagement helps us grow. Thank you. Why is the U.S. having a trade deficit in agriculture? This may sound counterintuitive. How can the U.S., a global agricultural powerhouse, be running a trade deficit in agriculture? According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, the agricultural trade deficit stood at nearly $12 billion in 2023. A shocking figure when you consider that just a decade ago, the U.S. had a significant surplus. What's happening is that while U.S. farmers are still exporting large amounts of produce, imports are increasing at a faster rate. A major reason for this is price competition. BRICS countries, using their new trading systems, are producing and selling goods at prices that are undercutting American farmers. Brazil, for example, has become the world's largest soybean exporter, outpacing the U.S. and selling at a much lower price point due to cheaper labor and streamlined BRICS trade deals. U.S. agricultural imports reached a staggering $194 billion in 2022, while exports lagged at $182 billion. This has led to the first significant trade deficit in agriculture in decades, with BRICS countries increasingly capturing market share that was once dominated by the U.S. American farmers are struggling to compete because BRICS nations have significantly lower production costs, and their currency trade agreements are enabling them to sell at much more competitive prices, says Thomas Lister, an international trade expert writing for The Economist. The U.S. simply can't keep up. American farm exports falter in the face of BRICS competition, reads the New York Times, discussing how cheaper imports and reduced exports are creating a perfect storm for American agriculture. How does the transformation of global trade to a non-U.S. dollar-denominated system outside of SWIFT hurt U.S. farmers and producers in the agricultural system? For decades, global trade has been tied to the U.S. dollar. Every major international transaction, from oil to wheat, was processed through the SWIFT banking system. This gave American farmers a level of stability, but not anymore. BRICS countries are sidestepping the US dollar, trading in their own currencies, and creating alternative financial systems. This may sound like dry economics, but the impact on American farmers is devastating. Without the stability of the US dollar and SWIFT, the prices for crops like corn, wheat, and soybeans are becoming less predictable and far less profitable. By trading outside of SWIFT, BRICS nations avoid US sanctions and influence. This allows them to undercut American agricultural exports. Essentially, they've built a parallel trading universe where the US has no leverage. I used to know what my crops were worth. Now, I'm competing with countries I've never even heard of for prices I can't control, says James Winkler, a US farmer. Why are US agriculture exports higher than imports, yet farmers are struggling? This is where it gets tricky. On paper, the US is still exporting more agricultural goods than it's importing. In 2022, the US exported $196 billion in agricultural products. But farmers are seeing less profit from these exports due to lower global prices and increased competition. The reality is that while exports remain high in volume, they're lower in value. A major factor is that US farmers are now forced to sell at lower prices, especially in markets where BRICS countries dominate. For example, US soybeans are selling for an average of 10% less than they were 2 years ago, as Brazil and Argentina flood the market with cheaper alternatives. The result is shrinking margins for American farmers. Is shrinking margins the only cause for the decline of American farmers? American farming has undergone a dramatic transformation over the last 50 years. In the 1970s, small family farms were the backbone of U.S. agriculture, but today the landscape is dominated by large corporate farms. One major reason for this is competition. Small farmers simply can't compete with the massive scale and efficiency of industrial farms, or with the low prices offered by BRICS nations. A USDA report in 2023 noted that the number of U.S. farms has dropped by 50,000 in the last decade alone. Meanwhile, corporate farming giants, many of which operate internationally, are swallowing up more and more land. This consolidation is leading to a system where small farmers are either forced to sell or go bankrupt. The small American farmer is becoming an endangered species, says Michael Green, a farming advocate writing for the Washington Post. They can't compete with the low-cost products coming from BRICS nations, nor can they keep up with the rising costs of inputs like seed, fertilizer, and machinery. In 2023, farm bankruptcies increased by 20%, according to the U.S. courts. Many of these bankruptcies are concentrated in the Midwest, where small wheat, corn, and soybean farmers are most vulnerable to competition from BRICS nations. How do farmers forecast what to plant, and where do they get the information from? American farmers have always been part businessmen, part meteorologists. They rely on market forecasts to decide what to plant, but those forecasts, they're becoming useless in this new world order. In the past, farmers would look at global demand, China, Europe, South America, and plant accordingly. But today, those signals are all out of whack, distorted by the BRICS nations' internal trading systems. How can you forecast demand when a huge chunk of the market is now closed to you? It's becoming a guessing game for American farmers. The usual metrics, crop prices, demand from China, global supply trends, they don't mean what they used to. BRICS' trading agreements are creating distortions that make it nearly impossible to plan for the season. And if you plant the wrong crop, that's the difference between making it and breaking it. Is this why China is canceling U.S. wheat shipments by the tons? In early 2023, China began canceling massive orders of U.S. wheat, an alarming trend that has sent ripples through the agricultural sector. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, China's cancellations amounted to over 1.7 million metric tons of U.S. wheat. which represents nearly 20% of the U.S. wheat export market to China. This shift is not just a minor inconvenience, it's a significant economic blow. For American farmers, this is a critical hit. The U.S. wheat industry, which relies heavily on exports, has seen prices fall sharply. In the first quarter of 2024, wheat prices dropped by 15%, from an average of $7.20 per bushel to $6.12. This drop is attributed directly to China's shift away from U.S. wheat. China drops U.S. wheat orders amid trade tensions, states Bloomberg. The article discusses how geopolitical tensions and trade policy changes are influencing China's decision to cancel orders and the subsequent impact on U.S. wheat producers. China's move to cancel U.S. wheat shipments is a strategic maneuver designed to weaken U.S. economic influence and boost its own trade partnerships within BRICS, explains Dr. Emily Chen, a trade policy expert at Cornell University. It's a clear indication of how global trade dynamics are shifting. It's not just wheat and corn. Soybeans are taking a hit too. The impact on corn and soybeans is significant and far-reaching. With China reducing its dependence on U.S. wheat, Russia has stepped in as a significant alternative supplier. The Russian Ministry of Agriculture reports that wheat exports to China surged by 38% in the first half of 2023, totaling $1.5 billion. This shift highlights Russia's growing role in global grain markets and its strengthened economic ties with China. In addition to Russia, other BRICS members such as Brazil and Argentina are also ramping up their wheat production. Brazil's wheat exports to China increased by 25% year over year, while Argentina has reported a 30% rise in its wheat shipments to China. Russia and South America fill the void as China turns away from U.S. wheat, reports the Financial Times. This article provides an in-depth look at how these countries are capitalizing on the opportunity created by U.S. wheat cancellations. The shift towards Russian and South American wheat suppliers is a strategic move by China to diversify its grain sources and reduce its dependency on U.S. agriculture, says Ivan Petrov, a market analyst at the Moscow Times. It also strengthens China's economic relationships within the BRICS bloc. Who is meeting China's demands for wheat if they're canceling U.S. wheat? The impact of BRICS countries on U.S. corn and soybean exports is also profound. In 2023, U.S. soybean exports to China dropped by 15%, falling from $14 billion to $11.9 billion. Similarly, U.S. corn exports declined by 20%, from $9.2 billion to $7.4 billion. This drop is attributed to increased competition from BRICS nations and changing global demand patterns. The USDA notes that Brazil and Argentina are major players in this shift. Brazil's soybean exports to China increased by 18%, and Argentina has reported a 22% increase in its corn exports. This competitive pricing and increased supply from BRICS countries are driving down U.S. export prices. U.S. corn and soybean exports hit hard by BRICS competition, states the Wall Street Journal. The article highlights how these shifts are affecting American farmers and the broader agricultural market. According to experts, the competition from BRICS countries is significantly impacting U.S. corn and soybean markets, says Jennifer Williams, a senior economist at the World Bank. Lower prices and reduced demand are putting financial pressure on American farmers. What is the BRICS Grain Exchange? The BRICS Grain Exchange is a new initiative aimed at facilitating grain trade among BRICS countries and reducing reliance on Western markets. It allows member countries to trade grains at preferential rates, leveraging their collective economic strength to negotiate better terms. The introduction of the BRICS Grain Exchange has already had a noticeable impact on global grain markets. According to The Economist, the exchange has reduced global grain prices by 5% in its first quarter, impacting U.S. grain exports and altering the balance of global trade. BRICS Grain Exchange alters global trade dynamics, reports The Guardian. This article explores how the exchange operates and its effects on global agricultural trade, highlighting both benefits and challenges for member and non-member countries. The BRICS Grain Exchange is a game changer in international agriculture, says David Lee, an international trade expert at the Carnegie Endowment. It shifts the balance of power and creates new trade dynamics that disadvantage non-BRICS producers. How is China's waning hunger for grain spelling trouble for American farmers and the world? China's shift towards increased domestic grain production and diversified imports is having a significant impact on global markets. The Chinese Ministry of Agriculture reports a 10% increase in domestic grain production and a 15% decrease in grain imports from traditional sources. As China reduces its reliance on U.S. grains, global grain prices are experiencing volatility. The Wall Street Journal highlights that China's decreased imports are destabilizing markets and affecting global food security, with prices for key grains fluctuating unpredictably. China's reduced grain imports create global market turmoil, reports the Financial Times. The article discusses the broader implications of China's changing grain consumption patterns and their impact on global agricultural markets. China's waning hunger for grains is part of a strategic shift that is reshaping global trade, says Robert Thompson, an agricultural policy expert at the International Food Policy Research Institute. The consequences for U.S. farmers are significant, affecting their income and market stability. The BRICS trading system is upending global agriculture, and U.S. farmers are on the front lines of this transformation. With BRICS nations creating their own trading blocs and bypassing traditional markets, U.S. farmers are being squeezed by lower prices, shifting trade patterns, and declining profits. This story is far from over. What happens if U.S. farmers continue to lose market share? How will global food prices react? And what does this mean for the future of American agriculture? We hope you are enjoying this video. We're thrilled to have you with us today. If our content struck a chord or sparked some inspiration, go ahead and smash that like button and hit subscribe to join our awesome community. Your support is super valuable and helps us grow. Stick around and check out another video from our channel, which is now on